Hey everyone. Today we're going to talk about another shocking case. There's an old saying, if you want to lose a friend, lend them money. Often when it's time to pay back, you'll hear countless excuses and reasons for not doing so. But what happens when the money wasn't even borrowed, but entrusted for safekeeping, and when it's time to return it, most of it is already gone? In such cases, people sometimes take drastic and cruel measures to handle the situation. This brings us to the 2017 case of Taylor Wright, which rocked the peaceful town of Pensacola, Florida. Her disappearance gained widespread attention and inspired many detective shows and documentaries. Taylor was missing for over a month before her body was found. From the start, there was no doubt about who was responsible. The killer, due to their line of work, had tried to cover all their tracks. However, in trying to create the illusion that Taylor was still alive and had simply left town, they overlooked one crucial detail. This detail ultimately unraveled the truth. Early life and background. Taylor Harper Wright Nee Johnson was born on April 23, 1994, in Jacksonville, North Carolina. She was the youngest of two daughters and was full of energy from a young age. To channel her liveliness, her parents introduced her to sports. Taylor excelled in swimming, athletics, and martial arts, earning significant achievements. After high school, Taylor attended a prestigious college and later the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, a highly selective institution. Despite the competition, she scored enough to get accepted. After graduating, she returned to Jacksonville and became a police officer in 2003. While in college, at age 19, Taylor met Jeffrey Wright, who was a couple of years older than her. They shared many common interests, and their relationship progressed quickly. Within a year of meeting, they decided to move in together and start building a life as a couple. 2 years later, Jeffrey proposed to Taylor, and she happily said yes. However, by 2009, their marriage started to show cracks. Hoping to fix their relationship, they decided to have a child, a plan they had discussed for a long time. In 2010, they welcomed a son, but instead of bringing them closer, the tensions in their relationship only grew worse. The young parents often argued, and their connection seemed beyond repair. Despite their struggles, the marriage lasted nearly 5 more years. In 2015, Jeffrey filed for divorce, citing Taylor's infidelity, an accusation she didn't deny. The divorce process was long and difficult, especially due to disputes over the custody of their son. A new chapter in custody battle. After separating from Jeffrey, Taylor moved to Pensacola, Florida, with her son and began a new life with her girlfriend, Casandra Waller. Jeffrey's accusations of infidelity weren't baseless. Taylor had started a romantic relationship with Casandra in 2014. By that time, Taylor had left her job as a police officer and transitioned to working as a private detective, a career that provided her with a much higher income. Jeffrey's career was also thriving, and both parents were financially stable enough to provide a good life for their son. However, their interactions were limited to courtroom meetings, where all disputes were settled. Early in the divorce process, Taylor withdrew around $100,000 from their joint bank account, refusing to share it with Jeffrey. She allocated portions of the money, some to her sister, some in cash to her parents, and nearly half to her former colleague and friend, Ashley McArthur, for safekeeping. Jeffrey contested Taylor's actions in court, but the legal proceedings dragged on. Meanwhile, a bitter custody battle unfolded. Jeffrey accused Taylor of taking their son to another state without his consent and making it difficult for him to meet or communicate with the child. This escalated the tension between the former couple, turning the custody dispute into a full-blown war. Taylor's behavior toward Jeffrey grew increasingly hostile during their custody battles. She often yelled, caused scenes, and even resorted to physical aggression. In mid-2016, when Jeffrey arrived to pick up their son for a pre-arranged weekend visit, Taylor tried to stop him. She began with verbal abuse, using foul language, but when Jeffrey placed their son in his car and drove off, Taylor chased after them in her vehicle, nearly causing an accident. This reckless incident was presented in court as evidence, and ultimately, full custody of their son was awarded to Jeffrey. Money troubles and betrayal. Taylor was deeply unhappy with the court's decision and went to great lengths to challenge it. She filed counterclaims and appeals, consulted with lawyers, and searched for strong legal representation. However, these efforts required significant funds, and she began using the money she had withdrawn from her and Jeffrey's joint account. Among this money was $40,000 that Taylor had entrusted to her close friend, Ashley McArthur, for safekeeping. Ashley had promised to secure the funds in a safe deposit box under Taylor's name and even claimed she'd written a cashier's check. In reality, Ashley forged Taylor's signature, transferred the funds to her personal account, and spent the money on herself. When Taylor eventually asked for her money back, Ashley offered endless excuses. She claimed she was too busy, had health issues, or faced technical problems at the bank. As time passed, it became clear to Taylor that the money was gone. Initially, Taylor tried to resolve the issue diplomatically, relying on the trust she had in her longtime friend. But when Ashley's excuses persisted for months, Taylor began making threats, warning Ashley that she could use her connections from her police and private detective work to take legal action. However, Taylor soon realized her threats carried little weight since Ashley was married to a local sheriff's deputy, giving her a layer of protection. A fatal meeting. On September 7, 2017, Ashley unexpectedly called Taylor, suggesting they meet the following morning to go to the bank and sort everything out. Suspicious of Ashley's intentions, Taylor agreed but remained wary. They planned to meet on the morning of September 8th, a day that would change everything. The night before her meeting with Ashley, Taylor went out with Casandra to a local bar. Over drinks, she confided her growing fears about Ashley. She felt uneasy and suspected that something might go wrong, but Casandra tried to reassure her that everything would be fine. The last meeting. On the morning of September 8th, Taylor and Casandra were having breakfast when Ashley arrived at their house in her car. Taylor quickly got ready, said goodbye to Casandra, and mentioned she was heading to work from the bank. She promised to be back in the evening. However, Casandra couldn't shake a strange, uneasy feeling, even though she couldn't explain why. Sadly, that morning was the last time she saw Taylor alive. Taylor had promised to call Casandra and update her on how things went, but by noon, there was still no word. Worried, Casandra tried calling her, but Taylor didn't answer, and the calls were repeatedly rejected. Later that evening, Casandra received a text from Taylor's phone saying she needed to leave town for a few days to clear her mind. The message also claimed the money issue had been resolved and asked not to be disturbed. Casandra found the message deeply unsettling. It didn't sound like something Taylor would do, especially given how close she was to her son. Despite her suspicions, she waited until the next day, September 9th, before going to the police to report Taylor missing. A slow start to the search. When Casandra approached the authorities, they didn't take her concerns seriously. The text messages from Taylor's phone were enough for them to assume she had left voluntarily. The police delayed starting a search, deciding to wait for a few days before taking any action. It wasn't until September 14th, after Taylor's parents and sister contacted the police out of desperation, that she was officially declared missing. Her family, unable to reach her for nearly a week, was frantic. They were adamant that Taylor wouldn't just vanish without a word, especially not without contacting her young son. Her 7-year-old son had been calling her repeatedly, only to receive no response. This unusual silence convinced everyone that something terrible had happened. A full-scale search. With mounting pressure from Taylor's family, the police finally launched a large-scale search to find her. The circumstances of her disappearance, combined with her loved one's insistence that she wouldn't leave voluntarily, suggested foul play might be involved. The hunt for Taylor had officially begun. Key findings and early suspicions. When Taylor was reported missing, investigators discovered that most of her personal belongings, including her documents, were still at home. No transactions had been made on her credit card since the night of September 7th. It was evident she hadn't packed or prepared for a trip. On September 9th, Taylor's phone stopped responding to messages, though it remained logged into her profile file for part of that day. It soon became clear to Taylor's loved ones that someone else was likely using her phone. Investigators searched the house Taylor shared with Casandra and found all her essential documents, making it unlikely she had traveled far. They also uncovered a permit to purchase a firearm, though the gun itself was missing. Casandra explained that Taylor had bought the gun for self-defense and had taken it with her the day she disappeared. First suspects. Early in the investigation, Casandra sensed that the police suspected her of being involved in Taylor's disappearance. Detectives questioned her thoroughly and sought evidence to support this theory. However, Casandra was able to provide a solid alibi. She had been at work all day on September 8th, where her presence was confirmed by multiple co-workers. With Casandra ruled out, the focus shifted to Taylor's ex-husband, Jeffrey. He had a clear motive. Taylor and Jeffrey were still locked in a heated custody battle over their son. The police also noted the lingering tension over the significant sum of money Taylor had withdrawn from their joint account before their divorce. However, this theory didn't hold up for long. Jeffrey had an airtight alibi. He had been in Jacksonville, North Carolina, taking care of his son and working the entire time Taylor was missing. Ashley McArthur, a shocking turn. After exhausting other leads, detectives finally turned their attention to Ashley McArthur, Taylor's friend and the last known person to see her. Casandra had pointed to Ashley from the beginning, but the police were slow to act. When questioned, Ashley behaved oddly. She appeared unusually cheerful, even flirtatious, and seemed unconcerned about the gravity of the situation. According to her account, she had given Taylor the full amount of money she owed on September 8th. After that, they had taken a short drive around town before parting ways. Ashley claimed Taylor seemed upset and mentioned wanting to leave town for a few days to clear her head. She insisted she hadn't seen or spoken to Taylor since. Ashley's behavior raised suspicions. Her lack of concern and overly casual demeanor stood in stark contrast to the seriousness of Taylor's disappearance. Investigators began to question whether she was hiding something. Suspicious behavior. Ashley McArthur initially dismissed any concerns about Taylor's safety, pointing out that Taylor was a trained martial artist, physically strong, and always carried a gun. However, her behavior during and after her first police interview raised suspicions. While there was no concrete evidence to hold her at that point, the inconsistencies in her story and her carefree attitude left detectives uneasy. Further investigation revealed that Ashley had extensive experience as a forensic technician. She had worked numerous crime scenes and knew precisely how to avoid leaving incriminating evidence. This knowledge made her an especially challenging suspect, as she would have been well versed in how investigators approached cases. Cell phone records between Ashley and Taylor showed frequent communication in the months leading up to Taylor's disappearance. The messages revealed a clear tension. Taylor was increasingly anxious about her money, while Ashley seemed to avoid resolving the issue. Adding to the oddity, Ashley started calling the police station daily after her initial questioning, ostensibly to check on the case's progress. Detectives suspected her real motive was to gauge whether they were closing in on her. Second interrogation. Roughly a week after her first interview, police called Ashley back in for further questioning. This time, her demeanor had changed significantly. Gone was her earlier confidence and carefree attitude. She appeared nervous, realizing the investigation was beginning to focus on her. Ashley tried to redirect suspicion onto Taylor's ex-husband, Jeffrey, claiming he could have hired someone to harm her. When detectives informed her that Jeffrey had been thoroughly cleared of any involvement, Ashley shifted tactics. She then claimed that Taylor had been deeply upset on the day she disappeared. According to Ashley, the two had gone to the McArthur family farm to ride horses and help Taylor unwind. While there, Taylor allegedly confessed that she was losing control of her emotions and planned to travel to another city to buy illegal substances to manage her stress. Ashley further claimed that Taylor's struggles with her ex-husband had driven her to this desperate plan. When detectives pressed her on why she hadn't shared this information earlier, Ashley gave an unconvincing excuse, saying she hadn't wanted to get Taylor into trouble. This sudden and dubious recollection only deepened investigators' suspicions. Mounting questions. McArthur's shifting stories and her apparent attempts to mislead investigators painted her in a highly suspicious light. Detectives began piecing together a more detailed timeline and scrutinizing her every statement. The inconsistencies in her behavior made it increasingly clear that Ashley McArthur might be hiding the truth about what really happened to Taylor Wright. The main suspect. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, Ashley McArthur remained the primary suspect in Taylor Wright's disappearance. She had a clear motive: avoiding repayment of the substantial amount of money she owed Taylor. Since the transaction wasn't formally documented, Ashley could claim she had already returned the funds. A new lead. Investigators decided to track the movements of Ashley and Taylor on the day of Taylor's disappearance using cell phone data. The records contradicted Ashley's account. Instead of heading to the McArthur family horse farm, their phones pinged much farther outside Pensacola. Afterward, Ashley's phone signal abruptly vanished, likely because she had turned it off. A few hours later, a text was sent from Taylor's phone saying she was leaving town to sort herself out, but shortly after, Taylor's phone signal also disappeared. By the morning of September 8th, Ashley's phone was back online in Pensacola. Investigators suspected she had turned off both devices to avoid tracking and make it appear as though Taylor had willingly left. When asked about her phone being off, Ashley claimed it had simply run out of battery. However, investigators traced the location of the last messages sent from Taylor's phone. The coordinates pointed to a vacant house with surrounding land owned by Ashley's parents, something she had neglected to mention. A grisly discovery. Detectives quickly obtained a search warrant and went to the McArthur family property. The house appeared abandoned, but a patch of the backyard stood out. A fresh flower bed had been planted over ground that was still loose. Suspicious, the investigators began digging. Just a few shovelfuls down, they struck something hard. Beneath the soil was a concrete slab filling a shallow pit. When the slab was removed, they made a horrifying discovery: a woman's skeleton lay beneath, with a gunshot wound to the back of the skull. Dental records confirmed the remains belonged to Taylor Wright. Due to the advanced decomposition of the body, the exact cause of death couldn't be determined, but the bullet wound suggested she had been executed. Evidence mounts. The discovery of Taylor's body, buried in a location connected to Ashley McArthur, turned the case against her. Investigators now had circumstantial evidence tying Ashley to Taylor's disappearance and murder. They shifted their focus to building a case strong enough for an arrest and key evidence. On October 17th, Ashley McArthur was arrested, and a search of her home uncovered a key piece of evidence: a bank check with Taylor Wright's forged signature. Ashley had used this forged document to transfer money from Taylor's account to her own, and then spent it. When confronted with the forged check, Ashley became visibly nervous, changed her statements, and insisted she had returned the money in cash from her own savings. The murder weapon and timeline reconstruction. Ashley and her husband Zachary owned several firearms, but none matched the weapon used to kill Taylor. However, investigators discovered Taylor's revolver, the one she had brought with her for protection, hidden in an outbuilding on the McArthur family property. Ballistics testing confirmed that this gun was the murder weapon. Ashley denied involvement, claiming she was being framed and pointing fingers at Taylor's ex-husband or girlfriend. She argued that someone had deliberately hidden the body and the weapon on her family's land to implicate her. Despite her denials, her inconsistent testimony raised doubts. Investigators pieced together a rough timeline of events from cell phone data, surveillance footage, and Ashley's behavior. A chilling sequence of events. On the morning of September 8th, Ashley picked up Taylor, likely with a plan already in mind. Taylor, sensing danger, brought her gun along. Cell phone data showed the two women driving around Pensacola before heading out of town. It is believed Ashley persuaded Taylor to visit the vacant country property under the pretense of returning her money. Once there, Ashley likely incapacitated Taylor with a blow to the head. While Taylor was disoriented, Ashley used Taylor's own gun to shoot her in the back of the head. The next day, on September 9th, surveillance cameras caught Ashley at a Home Depot, purchasing concrete and soil supplies she later used to bury Taylor's body in a shallow grave on her family's property. Trial and conviction. During the trial, Ashley's defense team argued that all evidence was circumstantial. They claimed the prosecution couldn't definitively prove that Ashley was responsible for Taylor's death. However, the timeline of events, forged check, surveillance footage, and burial on her family's property painted a damning picture. Ultimately, the jury found Ashley McArthur guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Legacy. The tragic case of Taylor Wright serves as a sobering reminder of how greed and betrayal can escalate into unimaginable violence. Her loved ones continue to honor her memory, advocating for justice and safety for others. Trial developments and additional charges. Despite the defense team's arguments that no direct evidence linked Ashley McArthur to Taylor Wright's murder, a combination of circumstantial evidence, incriminating behavior, and witness testimony painted a damning picture. The defense suggested that Ashley might have had an accomplice, as disposing of the body and covering her tracks alone would have been challenging. This led to Ashley's husband, Zachary McArthur, becoming a suspect. During the investigation, it was revealed that Ashley had a young lover, Brandon Bay, with whom she had been romantically involved for several years. Astonishingly, the money Ashley had embezzled from Taylor had been spent months earlier on purchasing a yacht for Bay. Zachary McArthur ultimately cooperated with authorities, providing testimony that highlighted Ashley's obsession with money and her capacity for extreme actions to maintain her lavish lifestyle. Witness testimony. A key witness, Audrey Warren, a bartender at a local club, further strengthened the prosecution's case. Audrey testified that Ashley was a frequent visitor to the bar and would often discuss her problems with Taylor Wright while intoxicated. Ashley had allegedly made alarming statements, including expressing a desire for Taylor's death and even speculating on methods to eliminate her. Financial fraud and arson. As the investigation into Taylor's murder unfolded, further evidence of Ashley McArthur's financial misconduct surfaced. She had a business installing slot machines, where she was supposed to split profits evenly with her clients. Instead, Ashley kept about 75% of the earnings. When her clients confronted her, Ashley invited them to her office to review the financial records. That same night, a fire broke out, destroying all documents. Investigators later determined the fire was an act of arson, likely orchestrated by Ashley to cover up her fraudulent activities. Conviction and sentencing. In August 2019, Ashley McArthur was found guilty of first-degree murder. She received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Additionally, she was sentenced to 7 years in prison for financial fraud and the arson of her office. Conclusion. The case of Ashley McArthur serves as a grim reminder of how greed, betrayal, and manipulation can culminate in tragedy. Taylor Wright's loved ones continue to mourn her loss, advocating for justice and the protection of others from similar fates. Thank you for following this case. If you enjoyed delving into shocking stories and intriguing mysteries, don't forget to subscribe for more.